Morning, everyone. We're gonna start in just a moment as we start letting people come in. Happy to see everybody on this, what day is it? Wednesday.
Hey, how are you? Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
This is Alma Dávalos from La Ley.
Hey, good to see you. Glad you can join us.
Mhm.
We're gonna get started in just a second.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Just give it like one more minute and then we'll get going. Well, I'll jump in, say hello, welcome everybody. I'm Angie Newsome. I'm the Executive Director of Carolina Public Press. Really excited to see all of you and get a chance to spend the next hour with you talking about Carolina Public Press, what we're up to, and getting to know you all. So really appreciate you all spending some time with us, taking some time out of your day. And we're all here, the whole team from CPP is here to say hello and share some about what we're doing and what we have in store, and yeah, get to know you all today. So our goal is just that. This is going to be a much more casual event than we've had in the past. If any of you have been on some of our virtual panels over the past several years since the pandemic started, or if you've come to our in-person events, this is much more casual, much more free-flowing, and much more conversational, hopefully. And I hope that you'll kind of keep an eye out for future events like this and share it with your friends and family and get together and get to know us and yeah, have the opportunity to have a conversation with you all. So first of all, I just want to say, in addition to thank you for being here, a lot of you are donors, members, readers, partners, and we really want to thank you all because you're the reason that we're here. You're the reason that we do this work, is to really serve North Carolina with in-depth, investigative, public service journalism. And we do that from CPP using a nonprofit model. And I'm really happy about that because the mission of our organization is journalism first and serving North Carolina first. And that's really important to us. And we often get great ideas from these sessions. And your support, it really makes us able to exist and have these great journalists and nonprofit professionals be a part of putting together CPP every day. So I really want to thank all of you because that's very important to us. So what's going to happen today is we'll spend about an hour together. The session is being recorded because, as you know, people are busy, and we'll be sending out this recording to other folks who possibly weren't able to join us live today. And so just keep yourself muted, but also if you have questions, there's a couple of ways that you can get them to us and we'll talk about them today. One is to raise your hand. There's a way on the screen. If you look at the reactions at the bottom of your Zoom screen, I believe you can raise your hand that way. We'll just say, hey, jump in. What do you have to say? And if you're like me, I'm actually an introvert and you'd rather write your question out, jump on the chat screen and just say, hey, I have a question for Kate, for Lisa, for Ben, for Shelby, or want to respond to what Annie said or whatever. So feel free to do that as well. And we'll try to keep up with you. Lisa and Ellen and I will be monitoring the chat. So we'll try to make sure that we stay on top of that. But if we miss you, just jump back in and tell us, hey, I have another question I'd really like to ask. So that's what's going to happen today. And yeah, we'll just get started. I want to start with some introductions. Of course, I'm Angie Newsome. I just said that I'm executive director and founder of Carolina Public Press. We launched in 2011. Lots of you know our mission, which is public service and in-depth and investigative reporting. We cover all 100 counties of North Carolina. That's different from when we started, which we were focused on Western North Carolina, but in 2018, we expanded to the whole state. And right now, some of the faces that you see joining us are folks from all over the state, from the coast to Asheville, Cumberland County, Durham, Greensboro, all over. So I'm really excited about that. And you'll get to meet folks today and see where they're from. So I'd like to introduce you to Ellen Acconcia. She's the Director of Audience and Engagement. Ellen, do you want to say hello and say just a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Welcome, everyone. As Angie said, I'm Ellen, Director of Audience and Engagement. Here at Carolina Public Press, I work on helping to grow our subscriber base, our membership base. I help with keeping our brand top of mind for our subscribers and hopefully prospects who will become subscribers and eventually members. Work closely with Angie and Lisa on our development efforts. And I'm also overseeing our Google News Initiative project, the NC Connection project, working with Lindsey Wilson, who you'll also hear from today. We'll tell you a little bit about what's going on with that and give you an update. We are about halfway through well, actually more than halfway through the project, because the project will wrap up toward the end of the year. So we've got a lot of irons in the fire in that respect. But happy to be here, and hopefully I can answer some questions that you might have about what we're doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellen. Shelby, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Shelby Harris, and I cover Western North Carolina. I have a specific focus in government finance, specifically the American Rescue Plan Act. That was a lot of specifics. I'm just looking into how that money is being spent and used and distributed in this region in the 18 westernmost counties. But I also get to do some other fun stuff. I got to write about Ukraine, and I got to write about healthcare a little bit, so I kind of do it all. Before I was here, I worked for the Citizen Times in Asheville, and before that, I worked for a small newspaper in rural East Tennessee. And I love covering government and kind of keeping tabs on what everybody's doing. And that's just kind of my goal in all of this. Yeah, that's me.
Great, Shelby. And then I'm going to ask Ben to introduce himself.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben Sessoms. I'm based in Fayetteville. I cover local government there for CPP's East Bureau. Also, I cover a variety of things that affect Eastern North Carolina. Like I've covered Kenmore's groundwater contamination in Cumberland County and the surrounding area. I cover housing affordability because that's such a big issue, particularly here in Cumberland County. I've also covered ARPA related things, specifically broadband access. So yeah, I cover a variety of things here in the eastern part of the state.
Thanks, Ben. Lisa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lisa Lopez. I am the Director of Development, and I am charged with helping to secure resources to support the fantastic journalism we have here at Carolina Public Press. And as Ellen mentioned, I work closely with her and Angie to increase our members, increase our membership, and also work with foundations, again, to secure that funding to help support the organization. So I'm so glad to be here, and thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Kate, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Kate Martin. I'm the lead investigative reporter for Carolina Public Press, and I've been working here for almost 4 years, has it been? Anyway, I cover a wide variety of issues around the state, including sexual assault and social services. You know, I've did a lot of work during the pandemic which is ongoing to cover the coronavirus. And I work also with the North Carolina Watchdog Reporting Network to coordinate some of our work with them. And I've also worked in Washington State and Colorado newspapers.
Thanks, Kate. Lindsey, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure thing. My name is Lindsey Wilson. I'm the Rural Engagement Manager here at Carolina Public Press. And this year I'm working on a project that Ellen mentioned. It's the Google News Initiative project. We received a grant through Google to spend a year focusing on the news and internet needs of people in rural North Carolina. So we're trying to better understand what people in rural communities need in terms of news, what kind of internet access they have, and how the digital divide and digital inequities contribute to people's ability to access news information. And before I came to CPP, I spent about 7 years as a organic produce farmer, but my background is in English and anthropology. So in addition to a lot of time spent in rural communities, I also have a background in research.
Thanks so much, Lindsey. And last but certainly not least, I'd love for y'all to meet Scott Barnwell. He's the chair of our board of directors and has been really instrumental in our development and our expansion across North Carolina. And I'm really, one of my great joys of my job is getting to work with amazing board members from across North Carolina. So yeah, with that, Scott, would you like to jump in?
Thanks, Angie. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. And I just want to encourage all of you that are on the call today, if you're as impressed with the journalism that I am and have been for years, and I count myself among both a board member but also a financial supporter, because this kind of investigative journalism is so desperately needed. And it just takes a little bit of looking at the Carolina Public Press website to see the kind of impact that this organization has had in the state and even beyond. So some of the work that Kate mentioned, like with sexual assault, has changed laws. We've seen major lawsuits develop from work around social services and child welfare that, quite honestly, if it wasn't for an organization like Carolina Public Press shining the light on some of these critical matters that otherwise just would probably be hidden in darkness and nobody would know about it, and kids would not be reunited with their families in some cases. I mean, really some just fundamental critical stories that change people's lives. And that's why those of us on the board volunteer our time and finances to support this organization. And really, just if you believe in it like we do, just tell your friends and family. Consuming the products of Carolina Public Press is free, and so please share that widely and broadly, and then hopefully some fraction of those folks will be as impressed as we are and want to join and help make this possible, because it really is through the support of folks like this that make this more and more. It's less about foundation support and more about individuals that make this kind of journalism possible. So thanks again for the minute to introduce myself, and just it's a real honor to be here.
Thank you so much, Scott. I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to jump in, and now that we have the introductions done, and really remind y'all, if you have any questions or want to chat with us, you can raise your hand at the bottom of your screen, use the little reactions button and just raise your hand and we'll call on you. Or you can drop it in the chat if you have any questions or comments and things like that. So with that, I mentioned before I have my coffee with me. Does anybody else have beverages they want to share? Yeah, you have coffee. Is everybody drinking coffee this morning? Is that or afternoon?
This is a hoax.
I had the coffee earlier. I need to not have
Yeah,
more.
same here.
I'm actually not a real journalist. I don't drink coffee.
Oh,
But
no.
I can't just. I know. Oh,
Tea
God.
drinker. Oh no.
No, this is kombucha. It's
Oh, okay.
cute mug because I knew I was going to be in front of.
Well, I also have a seltzer. Does anybody have seltzers? We
I have
joke on
Topo
our
Chico.
board meeting. We joke during our
husband-
board meetings, everybody has seltzers. We're like,
My
"You have
husband brews beer, and so we have a fridge with all the beer taps on it, and one of them's water. So
Oh, that's great. Well, now that we have our beverages, and I don't know if anybody's eating lunch, please do. We did it during lunch on purpose, so we could just have like a virtual lunch with you all. I just want to kind of give you an update from me, and then we can, Annie, I see your hands raised, and then you can jump in. So I told you a little bit about how CPP got started, and I wanted to share a couple of pieces of news with you all. And I also wanted to share our 10th anniversary page with you. So we celebrated our first decade at CPP in 2021. Gosh, that feels like 15 years ago. Am I the only one? But we did that. And as a part of that celebration, we spent some time kind of looking back at the work that we've done and then looking forward at what's to come. And I'm very excited about the direction we're going. You all may know we've had some turnover in our newsroom, but we're getting staffed back up and looking again about how we're going to move forward. I made an announcement early in the spring that I would be stepping away from CPP. That's a part of my goal in making the organization sustainable, that it lasts well beyond me. I'm putting that plan on pause, however, because we do have some folks in the newsroom that we want to hire and get going again from an editor position in the newsroom. So I just wanted to let you all know that piece of news, that I'm actually not stepping away from CPP for at least another year. So with that, I just wanted to give that little bit of an update because I'm getting lots of questions about that, and I just wanted to update you all on that. So with that being said, I'd love to share my screen and kind of show y'all our 10th anniversary page so you can see it and play a quick, it's like a 3-minute video. It actually stars Scott's in it. So I'd love to share it with you all. Okay, so if you go to our website, if you all haven't had a chance to look at it, please do. This kind of goes over what happened when we started, kind of the beginning story of CPP. It talks about our membership program. We have lots of folks who joined us in our 10 for 10 membership program, which was just amazing. And here's a list of those folks. Some great photography that's been done. And we had award-winning photographers who've been working with us the past decade. I'm kind of scrolling through here quickly just to give you an update or just give you a brief look at this. And then at the bottom, you can see some of our stats, and then kind of a quick look at some of our best stories in the past 10 years. And I know that Kate's been here the longest in the reporting team, so you'll see a lot of her byline in here. And then we had a big event schedule from that year, and you can see the recordings from that as well if you'd like. But I'm going to head back up. I'm going to play this little quick video for you, which gives you a sense of who we are. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. We've got two. See. There we go.
First heard about Carolina Public Press through a radio interview. I was driving on the road and I literally pulled off the road to listen to that interview. And it was about government transparency and accountability. And I thought, wow, this is a resource that is so missing in our journalism landscape.
We became at 11 a.m. that day, the moment that we went live, the only nonprofit media organization that served 17 counties of Western North Carolina, and that was passionately, obstinately, wholeheartedly devoted to journalism in the public interest, to in-depth, enterprise, investigative reporting.
I'm really drawn to the mission of Carolina Public Press. I like that they shine the light on underreported issues in North Carolina. These are issues that I'm concerned with that affect my community. They really put a lot of focus on the issues and on doing this investigative reporting. We are nonpartisan because we believe that North Carolinians are smart enough to make up their own minds. We believe there is no substitute for the gritty, shoe leather journalism that is at the heart of what we do at Carolina Public Press every single day.
The work that Carolina Public Press does impacts lives for the better in terms of finding things that people want to hide. Our duty and responsibility when you take on journalism as a project is to serve even the people who don't want you to uncover things.
Our strategies for growing Carolina Public Press are solidifying. In the next 10 years, we are all about our impact, reach, and sustainability. We are building and exploring many ways to get our news and information into eyes, ears, and hearts of North Carolinians, especially those who are most directly affected by state policies and official actions.
Carolina Public Press is a shining example of how journalism can be done right, how it can be fact-based, how it can be nonpartisan, how it can actually address the issues, not just in headlines, but in depth with substance that has impact on people's lives.
Journalism is best when it reports stories that focus on that aspect of what it means to be human.
How can we know what the problem or challenges are if no one is telling these stories, if solutions aren't explored, if information isn't brought to light? And we are working to build the most impactful, largest, nonpartisan, nonprofit news organization devoted wholly to investigative and public interest news. And we're just getting started.
Try this
Sorry,
strange
y'all.
10-second tech.
I don't know what's happening.
That made me kind of teary.
Aw. I'm sorry, I can't get the share screen to stop. I apologize.
You're fine on this.
Oh, am I? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry for my user error there, but that tells you a little bit about who we are and where we're going. And if you scroll down into that page, you'll see our plan. Our plan is to be the largest wholly independent investigative news team in North Carolina. And we're getting there. We have, you'll see and hear from folks today that are proof that we're getting there on that plan. And there's lots of details on that plan if you'd like to take a look about where we're, what we have in mind, which is essentially from a high level, building a team of 12 journalists in North Carolina that are located across the state. Ben's in the Eastern Bureau that we launched last year, at the beginning of the year, actually. So he's the first step towards that bigger plan. And so you all can take a look at that and ask questions about it if you'd like. So I'll stop there. And Annie, I think you had a question. Do you want to jump in?
Sure. Hi, I'm Annie Dance. I'm currently an independent journalist covering Rutherford County and the 11th Congressional District race. I live in Green Hill between Lake Lore and Rutherfordton. So I follow and really appreciate your work, especially Shelby's work. And I'm curious how your republish functionality works. And just a side note too, I appreciate your broadband research, because I lived in Connecticut prior to moving to Western North Carolina and really came here sight unseen during the height of the pandemic. And the internet is strung together with lots of technical things with my husband's expertise, but I'm not sharing my screen because the video is buffering and whatnot. So I appreciate that research, but I'm curious more about how your republish functionality works and how readers and other freelancers can help get the word out.
Yeah, thank you. I'll answer that question about republishing, and then Ellen and Lindsey, if y'all want to jump in and talk about the NC Connection project. I think that's a great segue. Thanks for that question, Annie. So in terms of our republication, basically we follow a model that lots of nonprofit news organizations have in the country, which is that we allow other news organizations to use our content for free. And we've done that since we launched Carolina Public Press back in 2011. Our content's been shared across the country, national organizations to very local ones. And so at the bottom of every story that we generate, so we also do some content sharing where we share other people's work. But if you want to pick up ours, there's a republish, click to republish button that you can use. And that's the case for our English content and also our Spanish language content. And some people take that and generate audio wraparound. Some people take it, put it on their digital website. Some people reference it on air and TV and radio. So there is a lot of flexibility with appropriate citations of using that. The only caveat on that is sometimes our photographs, we're not able to offer those because those are the property of the photographers, but we can help facilitate that conversation. Is that your question, Annie? Am I answering that correctly?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And then Ellen and Lindsey, do y'all want to jump in and share about the NC Connection project?
Sure. I'll start, and then I'm really going to let Lindsey take over after a little bit of intro here from me, because Lindsey's actually our boots on the ground person. She is actually going to rural communities, both in person and virtually, talking with people. She's been having one-on-one interviews with people, and kind of parsing and analyzing the data that is coming in from our NC Connection survey that's been out there now for 3 months, 4 months, Lindsey?
4 months.
How long? Oh, I guess it was April, maybe.
I think we launched in May.
Yeah, May.
Early
Okay.
May.
Yeah, about 4 months now the survey's been running, and we're like really excited about the data that's coming in. Angie, is it okay if I share my screen for a sec?
Sure. Yeah.
If this works, because I think. Okay, are you guys seeing this NC
Yes.
Connection
Yep.
page now?
Mhm.
Perfect. I just wanted to show you all, we have a portal on our website for the NC Connection project, and you can actually reach it from our front page on that button there. That
Oh,
says,
Ellen, we're actually seeing your other screen, I think.
oh, what do you, well, that's odd.
I know, that's why I was having some trouble.
Let me move. I have two. Are you
There
seeing
we
it?
go. Yes.
There we go.
Okay.
Yep.
I have two screens, so I have a little trouble navigating this. But anyway, you can go there from our homepage. And here we're going to collect all the information that's available so far on the NC Connection project. We did publish earlier in July several stories that gave everyone a really good overview of what's happening so far. We talked about our survey insights, and we talked about, where we're going from here. When you get to this page, this will become like our final repository of all things having to do with the project. We talk about where we got our funding, who our partners are, research strategies, how we're doing the analysis, what are the parts of the project? And as I said, basically the beginning part of the project was mainly our survey. We started this back in the fall of 2021 after we got our funding from the Google News Initiative project. And I started mapping out, what we really needed to do to hit specific milestones in the project. Lindsey came on board in February of 2022 and hit the ground running, working with market research to develop this survey. And then really kind of, hitting our partner groups hard for help with data analysis, help with outreach into various communities. She did a lot of research on rural communities in North Carolina to kind of see, what were the places that we really needed to reach. And Annie, it really goes to your point, because you're the people that we really wanted to talk to, the people that are kind of suffering, especially you being a journalist with not having great internet connections in your area. This all became very apparent during COVID, obviously, children trying to do online learning and having poor internet connections. So we wanted to find out who these people were, how they were getting their news now, what kind of news they were looking for. And basically what we hope to do with the research is to hopefully try to develop a product or products to serve these communities better. And that could be a texting service where we push news out via text, because we discovered that people use their smartphones more than a desktop. It could be another newsletter. It could be a combination of those two things. So we're at this stage right now where we're actually, as I said, analyzing the data and trying to figure out, what these answers are and what we need to do with it. I'm going to let Lindsey take it over from here and talk a little bit about her one-on-one efforts, and also some of the events that we participated in already, and then hopefully things that we'll do in the future, either virtually or in person. So Lindsey, take it away.
All right, thanks, Ellen. So last week we actually did a large event at UNC Pembroke, down in the Sandhills region of the state, where we had about 45 folks gather to talk about news, broadband, just issues facing that area, specific to that region. It was a really successful event. We had a great cross section of folks from the community, lots of college students, lots of older folks, sort of a little sprinkling of everyone showed up to that event, and we learned some great things. Right now I'm sort of analyzing the insights that we had from that event and figuring out, what exactly that means for this project. We are planning to have a couple of additional, so we called that a listening session, sort of a focus group, but on a larger scale, not just like a small room full of people, but a large room full of people talking to each other. We are planning to have a couple of focus groups virtually over the next month or so, probably one on the Eastern Coast and one focusing on folks in the Western region of the state, because one thing that we're finding through our survey data is that there's sort of these like statewide trends that we can interpret, and then there's also more region specific issues that people are facing. One thing that I found is that a lot of folks in the western part of the state who I've talked to struggle to have reliable internet, but do also still have really great local news sources. So I want to kind of test that theory and see if that holds across the state, or if, for example, folks on the Eastern Coast are having a harder time accessing local news, and maybe an easier time accessing the internet. We're just kind of testing those theories right now. I can give you briefly some insights from the survey that we've received so far. We have about 1,500 people have participated in the survey to date. And that is well above and beyond our goal of 1,100 participants. So we're really excited about how well that survey has been received. About 70% of the people who have participated in the survey identify as being either from rural communities or small towns. So places under 50,000 population, which is great. That's exactly the folks that we want to talk to. About 6% of those participants do not have internet in their households. And the two main reasons for that, which are kind of what we would expect, are accessibility and affordability. About 50% of people said that the internet in their area is unreliable, and around 40% said that it's too expensive. So one of the partners that we have in this group is the NC Broadband initiative at the Department of Information Technology. And one thing they've talked a lot about is that, we can run broadband right through your front yard, but if you can't afford it, then it really isn't helpful for you. So we're trying to also uplift the initiatives of groups like the Department of Information Technology, who have a subsidy program available. About 500,000 folks in North Carolina are currently signed up for that monthly subsidy. It's $30 off your internet bill. But they estimate that about 3.3 million people are actually eligible for it, based on, SNAP eligibility, school lunch funding, that sort of thing. So we're really trying to help those organizations get the word out about their programs as well. Yeah, we see that this confluence of issues of both the digital divide and news deserts is really kind of conflating to make it harder and harder for folks to access reliable news information. So we want to try and figure out what it is that we can do as an organization to help address those issues.
That's great. There's been Oh yeah, thank you. There's been a few questions related to the survey. Can you all talk about whether, let's see, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to paraphrase some of this, whether the survey, there's a plan for Spanish content for the Google supported research. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So the survey is available in both English and Spanish. We have short links to both of those surveys, and it's pretty easy to navigate. On the front page of the survey, there's a little tab that has the language selection, so folks can navigate that fairly easily. We do have plans to publish information in both English and Spanish, and we've been working with a translator along the way to try and translate as much of the information as possible. About 30% of the participants said they had access to Spanish language news. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are Spanish speakers, but a significant portion of the people who we're talking to do at least have access to and are aware of Spanish language resources. So we're really hopeful that we're getting some of those bilingual and Spanish speaking populations as well in this research.
And there's another question regarding Spanish content, and if it's originally Spanish content. I would have to say that it's originally coming out in English at this point. Then this has been different in our maturation of CPP over time. Certainly during COVID, we instituted some really quick partnerships with Spanish first journalists who we're mainly in broadcast, so it was a good pairing. So we produced the text-based work that was translated into Spanish. They produced the broadcast work that was audio and video, and we did cross promotion and cross sharing during COVID. And that partnership is still there, but not as active right now, to be honest. So mostly what we're doing is providing English first content that is then translated. And we also do that for a lot of our partnerships that we're in, like the Watchdog partnership that Kate can talk about at a state level. That's some of the stuff that we're able, in addition to her great reporting additions, we also try to add that resource and getting some of that Watchdog and investigative work into Spanish as well, that is then able to be republished elsewhere. Kate, do you want to jump in and talk about the Watchdog project and some of the work that you're doing? And
yeah, Yeah, sure. The Watchdog Reporting Network is sort of a consortium of around a dozen news outlets where we have, at the start of the pandemic, realized, wouldn't it be great if we all got together and started reporting on this collectively instead of everybody sending the same exact questions and records requests to all of the agencies we want to know about COVID-19. And so we finished that work related to essentially like the crisis strike team of journalism, covering the pandemic. And we're not covering it on a day-to-day basis anymore like we were during the pandemic, which is still ongoing, obviously. But now we've sort of switched to a more slower pace where reporters are pitching their project ideas to the Watchdog Reporting Network. And we decide collectively on what stories we are going to work on. And so hopefully it'll result in more high impact journalism by a lot of very intelligent people. We just switched to that model, and our first story for that model is being published. I think it's tomorrow. Actually, yeah, I think it's tomorrow, on school buses and problematic diesel engines. So that'll keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, and Kate, would you talk a little bit about your investigative reporting, what you're working on right now? I think Fix might be interested because
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I've been, ever since I got here, my first major project was writing about prosecutions and sexual assault. Like, how often do prosecutions result in people being convicted of sexual assault? And that reporting revealed that fewer than 1 in 4 people charged with rape are eventually convicted of it. Excuse me. And so it was a project that we did with a number of other news organizations in a partnership. And state law was changed with that project regarding consent in sexual relationships, I guess, or not necessarily relationships, obviously, but in North Carolina, it used to be legal to rape somebody who had been incapacitated through their own drinking or drug use. And now it is now considered rape, and it is also considered rape to continue having sex with somebody who told you to stop. It didn't used to be against the law to continue having sex with somebody, like if you had gained consent from them for the initial interaction. That actually had been a law in North Carolina for 40 years before Governor Cooper signed it in 2019, signed a law overturning it in 2019. So what I'm working on now, I'm trying to get a hold of people who are survivors of sexual assault, who had a rape kit that had not been tested. You may recall, if you followed my reporting, that North Carolina had the largest backlog of sexual assault kits that had not been tested in the entire country. In 2019, that number of kits was around 16,000. So each of those is a person who had been assaulted, who had gone to the hospital to get cared for, to get the evidence collected from their body of the crime that happened to them. And none of those kits were tested. Maybe they were told that they might get tested, or they were, who knows what law enforcement told them. That's what I want to find out. I want to find a person who had a rape kit that had been untested in the state's backlog to see what their interaction had been with, with sexual assault nurses, with prosecutors, with police. I want to see what that experience looks like now that most of these kits are starting to be tested. Because the state is spending millions of dollars to test these kits and to get the DNA from these kits. And what is that resulting in, right? Like, I know these prosecutions can take a long time, but I want to know what it looks like from somebody who's had to go through this incredibly traumatic experience.
And that's a project that Kate's working on right now. Speaking of collaborations, we're actually working with just kind of on the fly major news organizations in North Carolina and writing the administrative office of the courts about some data that they're now choosing not to release. So we do a lot to get this data and make it accessible. And of course, Kate's been working on that. And that's just, she's also a very modest person. And I just want to brag on her a little bit, because that reporting was also seen by a congresswoman in the state who took it to Washington, and subsequently, and I'm good, there's lots of weeds in how this process happened, but cut to the chase, what happened is that there was an amendment to the Violence Against Women Act that now is supporting and helping to fund tracking and training sexual assault nurse examiners across the country. And that came from Kate's reporting about how difficult it is, particularly in rural and tribal communities, for people to access sane nurses when, arguably one of the worst things in her life that just happened. So I just want to share that Kate was very instrumental in that happening. And I want to brag on her on that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Angie. I sometimes get a little into the weeds on some of this stuff and need to focus a little more on some of the results. Yeah, the reporting that I did last year showed that there's not a whole lot of sexual assault nurse examiners. You can't just show up at a hospital and expect to be treated by an expert if you're sexually assaulted. If you show up at a hospital with a heart attack, you expect to see somebody who's specialized in dealing with heart attacks or diabetes complications or any number of reasons why you would go to a hospital. You expect that there's going to be an expert there. And for some reason, sexual assault is not something that you can expect to receive treatment for from a qualified nurse.
Right. And reporting's continuing on that. Shelby, would you like to jump in and kind of talk about your reporting? And Annie had a great question about how your experiences have been with public records or FOIA requests. I'm kind of curious from Ben and Shelby, since y'all are doing a lot. There's a long answer to that question, Annie, as you might imagine. And I think Shelby and Ben can respond from a very local and regional point of view, and even statewide. Shelby, do you want to jump in and talk about your reporting?
Absolutely. And Annie, I recognize you from one of the Pointer seminars. She was in one of my breakout rooms. So I actually have been very blessed I have not had to submit a single FOIA request at Carolina Public Press. And I like to think that that's because my skills have gotten better and I've gotten pretty good at finding everything that I can find. And there really hasn't been anything that hasn't. Like I said, I cover government finance, so that all has to theoretically have a paper trail that we can access. So I'll let Ben talk more about FOIA requests, or Kate's the FOIA queen, so she can talk about that. But within my reporting, so like I said, I've been covering this one specific piece of legislation, huge, and how it's being used in communities, whether it's being used in a tactful way or kind of in an unsavory way. Treasury makes it really hard. The Federal Treasury Department makes it really hard for things technically to be illegal if you spend them on ARPA. So there likely won't be a lot of audits, but it's pretty clear when you're looking at things to think, this is pandemic recovery money. Should we spend it on this? So I spend a lot of time doing that, which consists of a lot of pouring through meeting documents and just, cold calling people. And I just have not had to submit any FOIAs to anybody yet. But I knock on wood, I'll probably have to submit one later today. But that has been the main focus of my reporting. And I always say, I thought that Carolina Public Press was bananas. I was like, no way I'm going to be able to come up with 12 months of content about this. And I was so wrong, because now I'm coming toward the end of the project and I'm like, oh no, I have so much more to write about and so much more to cover. It's such an important part of society right now. And I have developed a big heart for rural communities, like you were mentioning, Rutherfordton and Lake Lure, and looking at how even them, they're may be getting a negligible amount of money, but just how they're spending that has been more impactful and interesting to learn about than Asheville and Buncombe County and Henderson County, these big places. I've enjoyed getting to get in the nitty-gritty communities and talk to people. And those are the people who usually have opinions if they're informed about it, which we know they're, as we're doing a project, is a lot of times they're not. no fault of their own. They just don't know that this is happening. Some people don't even know what ARPA is, which is fine. It's fine. It's a very complicated, really esoteric thing. So I'm excited to, when Lindsey jumped on board, I was really excited that she was going to start like looking at how many people actually knew about this and how they access internet. I've developed a deep interest in broadband in these here mountains. We got to figure that out. And that's what I do all the time. I just talk to a lot of government officials and then write what they're doing. I don't know if that sums it up enough. I was kind of long, Kate. I feel you in the weeds.
Oh, no, you're fine. Your reporting is awesome, by the way. I really admire how you write so well about such a complicated topic and help people understand what's going on.
Thank you. It is super complicated. It actually, I spent, I think the first week that I was here, I asked if I could just write an article explaining what it was and where it came from. And I read that every time I write a story. I go back to like my key. But it has, yeah, it's been very complicated, but very rewarding. I've gotten to write about federal pandemic money being used for SNAP benefits at farmers markets, or preserving Lake Lure, and a bunch of really beautiful things that you don't think that COVID money would go to, or even the government money would go to. And I have to stop myself from getting too poetic, like emotional about it, because it is really beautiful to look at how a lot of people are using this gift almost.
Thanks, Shelby. Ben, do you want to jump in about covering local government and any issues you have with like getting information?
Sure. So yeah, a lot of my coverage is centered around covering local government meetings, specifically Fayetteville City Council and the Cumberland Board of Commissioners. And I like to center my coverage there because when a lot of people today, I feel like talk about political issues in our community, a lot of media coverage focuses what's going on in Washington, with Congress and the Senate, and there's even a lot of coverage on the on the state side. But what really matters is like what's going on locally. What's your local city council doing? What's your board of commissioners doing? Because that's what really has an impact on our readers' day-to-day lives. So yeah, that's that's what my coverage focuses on. I go to nearly every city council, Cumberland County Board of Commissioners meeting to see what actions they're taking in the community, explaining that to readers. And and a lot of times when I'm covering a meeting, it may seem like what the council is doing or what the Board of Commissioners is doing may not seem that important, but when you look at it, it can have a wide impact on the community. And Annie, to answer your question about public records requests, and I know Kate can definitely speak to this. What the issue comes with finding information through public records requests is the timeliness of when it gets back to the reporter. I think that's the big struggle, is trying to get the information we're trying to find in a timely manner. It's also important when we make requests to be very specific about what we're looking for, because a lot of times we'll get information back and it's not even entirely what we were looking for. So it's very important to be very detailed in their requests, and I'm really pushing public officials to get information back in a timely manner according to public records law. And yeah, I think another issue too is depending on what agency and what part of the state you're getting public information from, it can be a struggle to get information from more rural counties, whether that be because of the infrastructure, or just, they're not used to dealing with reporters, say like, the Department of Health and Human Services in Raleigh is accustomed to getting. So yeah, it can be a struggle to get public information, but it's really the persistence in having, reporters like us really push for that information. Because legally the public does have the right to view it.
Thanks, Ben. Just in the interest of time, because we have about 5 minutes left. And Janet, you have a great question that I want to address real quickly, and then I'll turn it over to Lisa to talk and introduce herself and talk about her work. But Janet asked, can you speak to covering issues which primarily impact Black and Brown communities by white reporters? How do you create trust, make sure that implicit bias doesn't sneak in? I think that to the last question of making sure that, I mean, I don't know that that's possible. I mean, I think that we know who we are, we go forward, trying to identify our bias and trying to have as much self-awareness as we can. I think at CPP, I really try to foster, and I don't know if I'm perfect at this, but I really try to foster a culture of openness and curiosity and self-education. So I think that first and foremost, we've always had an ethos of listening, like really spending time and listen, asking questions and then shutting up, right? And I think we've seen over and over again that that goes a long way in developing trust across the board, no matter who the person is. It's my belief that that trust building takes a long time. It's not a one and done thing. It's like, and it can be, honestly, can be destroyed in a second. I mean, it's something that you have to do like over and over and over and over again. I think that that's the case with all of our reporting. And right now we're working just to share a couple of initiatives that we're doing internally that you all don't see happening, is that our board is working on a diversity plan. And maybe Scott, if you want to, but I can just briefly say it in the interest of time, is that we want to ensure that our top leadership, the executive director and our board, reflects the communities that we serve. And the first way we're doing that is focusing on racial diversity of our board and our board members. And we're pretty close to that, mainly because our board is so small. That's what's like attrition has happened over COVID. But that's very important. And those people bring their whole selves to our board meetings and talk about who they are, what they're doing. And, you know, that's very important to us. So that's one thing that's happening. We're also doing some internal training and conversations and reading books together and watching Knight Foundation presentations and looking for training opportunities. So again, that's just kind of the spirit of education and self-awareness that I think that's very important. We want to tell the truth. We want to be accountable, and we want to ask the right questions. And just like Lindsay's saying with the listening sessions, we've done that over and over and over again with all sorts of people all across the state. And I think that that goes a long way to building trust. So that's just a little bit. I think you and I could probably have a long conversation together on it, but that's just a little bit of my thoughts on that right now.
Could I add something teeny?
Yes, please, Shelby.
Everybody in journalism school, when you're in college, learns that the role of the journalist is not to tell people what to think, but what to think about. And so the only way to avoid speaking, I'm not trying to be arrogant and speak for everybody, but is just to lay out the facts and acknowledge like where you are in that and lay those out. So telling people what to think about, and I think we do a good job at that. But that trust question is a very multifaceted question. Yes. And I'm glad that you asked that and that you're aware of that. But I always, every time I can say that, we're supposed to tell people what to think about, not what to think. I try to plug that. So thank you.
Thanks for adding that, Shelby. And then last but not least, Lisa, I just really want to have some time for you to kind of chime in about, I mean, she's the one who helps make all that happen in a lot of ways and helping us really support financially the people that you're meeting today and the work that you read at CPP and the initiatives that we're doing and the research that we're doing. So Lisa,
Yeah, thank you, Angie. And I'll have to say, you know, I'll keep this brief because I've just so enjoyed hearing about what everybody has been doing, and that makes me so proud to wake up and raise money for CPP. So meetings like this are great, and yeah, as Ellen said, Ellen and Angie and I work very closely together to really secure resources for the organization. So we're behind the scenes, you know, working fast and furiously to make sure we secure those resources, make sure we do a good job in development. And just real briefly, wanted to give everybody an update about our membership program, which we launched about 2 years ago. And since that time, we have actually almost doubled our members. And so that's just fantastic. And if you're wondering how to become a member, simply donate. So very, very simple. Go to the website and become a member by giving philanthropically if you believe in the work that we're doing every day to support nonprofit news, nonpartisan news. And wanted to give everybody an update about our CPP shop, which is up and running. We have lots and lots of swag to choose from. And Ellen, the Vanna White of today's meeting is showing off the hat, the very cool CPP hat. We also have t-shirts and coffee cups and baby bibs, really cute baby bibs to choose from. So, again, visit our website to kind of take a look at those. And finally, just wanted to give a kind of a long-term goal or give a kind of an overview of our long-term goal, which is to raise 1.3 million a year by 2024. And Scott did a great job of summing up, why this organization is so important to society, democracy. And the last few seconds of the video that we watched earlier, you may remember our big audacious goal of being the largest nonprofit, nonpartisan, most impactful news organization in North Carolina. And we need that 1.3 million a year to make that happen. So really that's what we're all working as a team to make happen. And when Angie always says, when we work as a team and we're focused on that goal, then we do great things. And I think it's evident by this meeting and by all of our journalists and what they're working on. It's evident that we're making that happen. So thank you. I'll stop there. I could go on, but if anybody wants more information about supporting CPP, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, and in the interest of time, I know we've spent an hour together. I just want to say that all of our contact information is on our website and all over the place on socials and everything. So please reach out if you all had questions that you didn't get to answer, have story ideas you didn't get to share. Please reach out. Again, it's really important that, a lot of our best stories come from people's ideas. Kate's Seeking Conviction, the story came from someone giving us a tip that wasn't absolutely right. The tip wasn't absolutely correct, but it launched the questions. So I really do want to encourage people to reach out to us to build that, to listen, because we do want to listen to the good question that Janet asked. And so thank you all so much for your great questions, for being interested, for reading, for sharing us, for being members and donors, being partners in this. I know several of you are journalists who are doing amazing work and working with news organizations too. So I really just appreciate all of you. So with that, we'll close by saying thank you again. Thanks, Scott, for being here. And yes, to Ellen's point, we'll send the recording out to you all and all the people who registered as well. So thank you all very much and have a good rest of your day. I'm going to drink the rest of my coffee because I was talking too much. So bye, y'all. Have a good one. Thank you.